Hello and welcome to CNBC-TV18.com and Mirae Asset Mutual Fund presents Wizards of Finance Season 3. I'm Sonia Shenoy and we kickstart this season of the Wizards of Finance with a masterclass approach to help investors plan their finances by making the most of the different opportunities that exist in the market. Now, we all know that it's a very volatile time in the market at the moment with interest rates rising, inflation surging, growth on the slower side, and global markets seeing a bit of a challenge. Naturally, now more than ever, investors are looking for different ways to protect themselves against the turbulent time, against extreme uncertainties and changes in the market. There are many investment ideas that are present currently in the market, but we're trying to understand some novel investment ideas which will help you wade through all the challenging situations. Now we're also looking at something called thematic investing in mutual funds. This form of investment, unlike conventional options, involves investing in long-term themes, a long-term trend, or a long-term idea. Moreover, there's also potential for good returns in thematic investing if the investor is armed with the right kind of knowledge. So in today's conversation, I'm joined by Mayuk Datta, who's the Head Product Strategy and Communications at Mirae Asset Management, to talk about thematic investment, the various themes it encompasses, and things that an investor needs to consider before going ahead and including thematic funds in your portfolio. Mayuk, thanks a lot for joining in and welcome to the show. If you can just start by setting the context of what are thematic funds and what is the basic difference between thematic and sectoral funds, and then perhaps we can move on to why this could benefit investors.
So thank you, Sonia, and hello, and for having me on the show today. It's a pleasure to join on this masterclass session with you. And thank you for allowing me to set the tone for all of us to understand about thematic investing. Slightly a different take when it comes to investing, and many people would be aware of sectoral investing. So what I have is a quick primer for everybody to have a look, and then we can have the discussion when it comes to what thematic investing is all about. So let me just quickly put it up for everybody. I hope my slide is visible. I will just, so if I were to look at thematic investing, what I would like to put forward is it's basically a collection of ideas which can be clubbed together by a central theme. So that's where a thematic investing means. What would be the theme which connects different ideas over a period of time? Thematic investing is actually not a finite set of ideas which you can invest in. It's actually a growing theme. And these themes could be growing primarily because of changes in the environment, changes in economy, or on how ideas evolve. It is basically you are looking for a common connect which would link from one idea to the other as time and as investment or the universe or the investment climate changes. It is also forward-looking that a thematic investing is able to capture not only what are the ideas of today, but what and how those ideas will evolve and what shape they may take up as time goes on. And it is longevity, that there is not a set timeline to which a theme could evolve. It should be able to capture a large evolving landscape so that the investor is able to ride through or be invested or have an experience of a theme over a period of time. If I were to look at it, and naturally the natural comparison for any investor, and rightly so, is always that how is a sectoral investing, sector funds, and thematic investing, how they could be similar, or how are they the same thing but in a different manner? I would say that sectoral investing is mostly that it is linked to a central specific core sector and not anything beyond it. Sectoral investing actually is a limited mandate. It is based on today's present base, while an evolving mandate is what a thematic investing is about. Investors in sectoral funds, their experience is limited only to the outcomes of that specific sector, while in a thematic investment, different themes in different proportions will give the investor's experience out of it. In sectoral funds, many times investors need to be very aware of when they should be looking to invest into a sector and when is a good time to probably exit that sector. In a theme, because as the theme is evolving, an investor necessarily doesn't need to time entry or exit out of such themes. And when it comes to sectoral investing, usually it becomes a smaller part of the investor's portfolio. While in thematic, it can be a larger part of the, slightly more larger than the sectoral investment, because the theme itself will ensure that investor has enough exposure to what is the evolving themes with time. So I have a couple of examples just to quickly set the tone for everybody else. And here is an example of how our consumption overall has changed over a period of time. There is, in 2000s, while it says auto, I would like to talk about what is the consumption as it's evolved. Earlier consumption for all of us, Sonia, meant that it was basically roti, kapda, makan, and that's what our essentials were. So consumption meant things like probably an FMCG, your apparel, your housing, energy requirements, base requirements. But as the economy evolved, during the 2000s, probably we saw other things adding on to our consumption as a theme, which was banking, telecom, communication, linkages. In the last 10 years, you would have seen that our consumption has converted into being goods and services where technology, IT brands, devices, gaming, evolution of banking to financial, pharma to healthcare are all parts of how consumption has evolved over a period of time. And for the future, you would see consumption evolving into fintech, experiences, travel, luxury items becoming a part of consumption. So as you see, as economy evolves, what was bare minimum consumption earlier, today is now looking like much further into the requirements of investors. If you were to look at the auto theme, for example, auto earlier meant probably private and public transportation. Some part was auto and auto parts and ancillaries. Then auto actually evolved to become logistics also, because as goods and consumer transportation started moving, industrial transportation started moving, it went from auto to logistics. And the future is looking like electric vehicles, and the universe of the auto as it evolves as electric vehicles, future mobility, shared mobility, all the ancillaries, the battery, the autonomous vehicles, the software which comes along with it has started evolving. So here are two examples for the audience to be able to appreciate that what was a singular idea like auto or a consumer or an FMCG has evolved as time has gone away, and it will continue to evolve as we look at it. So primarily, to summarize, a thematic investing allows a larger scope of investment form than a sectoral allocation. Usually a theme will be taking care of your future evolution of such investment ideas. It connects different ideas because as the idea evolves, some things fall out of it and new elements come into it, as I showcased about in the auto. And investor doesn't necessarily need to time the investing in and out of those sectors. And themes may evolve as would the investor's investment outcome would also evolve over a period of time. So these are some of the points which I would like to highlight when I would say that these are the reasons why anybody should consider thematic investing. So I hope I've been able to set the context for all the audience what we mean by thematic investing.
Sure, got that. I think it's a little bit of an issue with your video. We'll try and just fix that. But thanks, Mayuk, for explaining that to us. So the clear difference between thematic, investing and sectoral investing, there is an umbrella theme, as you said, right? I mean, within autos, there's so much. There's auto ancillaries. There's the electric vehicle theme. There's so much more consumption. But my question to you is this: when an investor picks a theme, how do they decide when to enter and when to exit? Because this is a market which has so much disruption. Before you know it, a theme comes and goes, right? Defense, for example, did very well in a short period of time, in about 4-5 months. I don't know whether you categorize that in thematic or in sectoral, but you tell me, how do you decide when to enter and when to exit a theme?
Yeah, I think that's the difficult ball first. So let me try to answer it in a manner where I think mostly I would say that investor could start as taking
there's
that
some issue
where
with that video, so we'll just try and fix it in a bit. Yes, go ahead. We can hear you now.
So what I would say is that's the difficult question first. So I would say that one way for investors to look at is to see that a thematic investing is actually a part of their satellite allocation. Usually it would be the second part of their investment portfolio. To that extent, and therefore their allocation should be into thematic funds, while keeping in mind that they can start small and let the theme evolve and keep on allocating some money to it over a period of time. That would take care of the issue of if an investor were to understand that what is a good time to enter and what is a good time to exit. I think, and that point of time, investment behavior will become important, that you are able to allocate into a theme over a period of time in let's say by the systematic investment way is one way of looking at it. The second part of looking at themes could be is that, like it would probably be for sectoral investments, is to start with, as we know that sectors and themes also go through their ups and downs, and we have seen in many of your shows also that sectoral rotation and themes also rotate over a period of time. Maybe it is a good time to start with themes which are looking small right now but can evolve over a period of time, or they are beaten down at a point of time, and that could be a good starting point. Unfortunately, many times things which have run up usually get investors' attention. There is actually a use case of having to start with ideas which are slightly beaten down but can also grow over a period of time.
Okay, got that. So you said that thematic fund should be perhaps a part of your satellite portfolio, not so much as your core portfolio, because themes, they constantly do change. I also wanted to ask you about why should an investor do thematic investing? I mean, what is so unique in it? If I invest across the board, say in ETFs or in index funds, I get exposure across the vertical, right, in different segments.
Yes.
But in thematic funds, there is perhaps a higher risk involved as well if you don't catch the theme at the right time. So can you tell us what is so unique about thematic investing, and why should investors care about it?
Sure. So Sonia, when you look at the current construct of how schemes are segregated, majority of those investments are actually on the basis of market cap segmentation of schemes. So we are very comfortable to talk about large caps, mid caps, or large and mids, or small caps, or flexi caps and multi caps. There, a lot of our allocation is bunched together on the basis of size and type, and not type of companies, right? So that is anyway, and that gives you the diversification in your portfolio. The themes give you a flavor of the type of businesses and not necessarily only the size of businesses. So sometimes having that type of businesses or a type of ideas or a collection of similar looking ideas, as I talked about in my examples, also helps to give you a certain amount of diversification and a different element to your portfolio. So as to summarize, I would say a lot of our investments, our thought processes are on the basis of these schemes which are segregated on the basis of market caps. I would suggest by that thematic investing allows you to have a separate themes in your portfolio which are of a separate type. Of course, it comes with a certain concentration element to it, but therefore your allocation is to that part and not the core part of your portfolio.
So just to clarify, when you have a core portfolio, right, you have investments in, say, large cap funds, mid cap funds, flexi cap funds, balanced advantage funds. How do you decide how much of your portfolio should go into thematic funds? If you just had to if you have 100 rupees and have to break it up between portfolios, how much would you allocate to thematic funds? What should the weightage be?
Sure. So it's different courses for different horses, and that's how it would be, that each one's portfolio would be determined by their short, medium, and long-term goals, and within that you should allocate to different asset classes, and then the schemes and type of schemes come in. So whether it should be a large cap, mid cap, or whether it should be a thematic fund like a consumption or a consumer theme or a healthcare theme or a financial services theme is different. But having said that, I would say that within this at all points of time, it is absolutely prudent that your larger part of your portfolio should be diversified and core should be on the basis of market cap or the traditional products, along with large cap, mid cap funds, ETF funds, or probably index related products also. That remains. So thematic funds do not change on that. Thematic funds try to add on a certain amount of flavor, and that is so therefore the allocation will have to be rare ended. It should be a smaller part of the allocation. At a broad rule of thumb, I would say usually it would be somewhere around 10 or 20% of somebody's portfolio. Very evolved or aware investors should only be increasing a large part of the allocation
once again with that video. Apologies for that. But yes, go ahead. We can hear you. I think there's some issue with the internet, but yes, please go ahead.
So I would say that for majority of our investors, I think 10 or 15 or 20%, depending upon how their current portfolios or where their goals are, can be allocated towards thematic funds. It's only for, I have seen, for very evolved or aware investors who are much more informed about the themes or sectors, where they would probably be taking a larger exposure, but that is purely on the basis of their requirements or their awareness or about the risks which also come with such concentrated investments. But broadly, for majority of our audience, I would say a 10, 15, 20% is probably a good enough to have a collection of themes in their portfolios which complement the rest of their major part of their holdings.
Absolutely. I totally agree with you that, thematic fund investing is for discerning investors who perhaps have a lot of knowledge in this space, and, themes can change overnight or, over time. So you perhaps want to leave it with responsible fund managers to kind of take it forward for you. But sectoral rotation, right, Mayuk, how do you decide right now? What is the stage of the economic cycle that we are in? And what are the different themes, according to you, that will do well? Themes that you should choose and themes that you should drop. Your views?
Sure. So in any growing economy, you actually have a problem of plenty and not of scarcity, because in a growing country like India's, with a GDP growth rate of expected of higher single digits, you would have couple of themes which will evolve it going ahead. I'll give you a couple of ideas which probably has seen and probably have some legs to them. It's not a recommendation, but some observations which you can see. You have seen that in India, how banking has evolved into financial services. You are a part of a setup where you have been promoting about personal finance and you have been covering corporate finance. You have seen that how bankings have moved from PSU banks to now private banks to smaller niche banks to now financial services like fintechs, now going to mutual funds which are listed, and so many brokering setups and so on. So for example, in a growing country like India, you have seen the financial services evolve from banking, and it will move towards more like a tech-driven financial services. So I think such ideas are better to be in a financial services theme than probably looking only at banking sector, because they are interconnected and the themes will evolve. The second, as you said, you talked about defense. So I would take one step back and say that, would I look at something like a manufacturing as a theme in India, and within that probably defense will become a part of it, maybe something else will become a part of it, some export driven businesses will become a part of it, some other country factories or productions moving to India can become a part of manufacturing, and you have triggers like PLI and production link incentives coming into it. So I see many themes which have evolved, and I would think that these themes will continue to evolve. So an investor would not necessarily need to just think that whether the theme I'm catching it at the end of it, probably we are coming at the middle of it, and as the themes evolve, investors would continue to stay invested, then probably they're being only in a sectoral fund, because the call then is not with the investor but with the fund manager to be able to see that as the ideas evolve, the constituents of those portfolios are also changing as it is required for current and for the future.
Okay. There are some questions actually, that are going to come through right now in a bit. But before that, I also wanted to just get one final word in from you on how to exit a theme, right? I mean, as you said, there are a lot of good themes that are emerging right now. There is this whole digitization theme. There is this whole Europe plus one theme. There is, defense that has been a great theme. But at what point do you decide, okay, this theme has perhaps played out? Do you look at a multi-year upcycle? Do you look at a shorter span of time? From a stock perspective as well, or a fund is one thing, but from a stock perspective, when do you decide that, okay, now it's time to sort of exit the theme?
So typically then what your question would be to when does the manager decide to get out of A and look at the themes evolve, because the idea of a thematic fund being that it should be evolving and the manager should be able to capture the themes for right now and then move out. Usually this happens on 2 or 3 ways. One of the ways is to look at that, keep some part of the portfolio which may not be right now the theme for current, but it will be the theme for the as time evolves. So let's call them, catch them early themes as a part of the portfolio. The other part of the portfolio where themes need to move out are when they have run their course and now they are in a different syntax or format moving ahead. So for example, financial banking moved to private banking, then fintechs, then now you're looking at digital banks and so on. So your allocation in a theme changes as this time goes on. And the other time is when you think that you have taken a exposure into a certain theme, but it may not have evolved as it was expected in the given time frame. So probably it's time to move out of X and then move into Y, and when you have given it a certain period. I'll just add one more part to this. The other part I would say is that at any point of time, it is always better that the investor enters or exits a theme based on also their requirement. If your financial goal has been what you had thought while investing into the fund has achieved its goal, it's a good time to exit any scheme or any theme because your objective of investing in that theme has been achieved. So that's little internal, but from an external point of view, if you have the themes have run or some other theme has now coming in which looks more attractive, you make the changes within the portfolio.
All right, got that. We're actually getting a lot of questions and we're seeing it run on the ticker as well. So I'm just going to try and take some of those questions. One of them is on taxation. Is the taxation process the same as is the case with other mutual funds? You want to take that, Mayuk?
Yeah, absolutely. It's the same. So if it is an equity thematic investment and it is investing into domestic equity funds, and then usually the taxation is what an investor has the experience of taxation as per their tax, as per long-term and capital gains. So it's the same as any other. It's just buying the same stocks in a different format. So it's the same taxation.
Okay. Another one. What question should I ask my fund manager before investing in themes?
Sure. Good question. I think so. I would say that the questions would be to see that what have their views on when they have a thematic fund in their basket, and that's what you are evaluating to invest in. Then the question would be twofold: is what is the internal process in terms of how they look at these themes to evolve. So let's say again I go back to my example that would an auto sectoral fund evolve into an electric vehicle, and that universe, how will that transition be managed within the fund? Part number one. And part number two, definitely for the investor to check whether the fund house or the fund manager has been able to manage themes over a period of time. Is there some track record in terms of their being able to understand the theme, because it requires a certain amount of a little bit of an extra skill set to understand a specific part of the equity markets. So whether they have that knowledge to be able to manage those themes and be able to understand their evolution.
Okay, got that. Another one is thematic investment right for me? How do I know? This is interesting because you have different investors of different age profiles, different risk appetites. So how do you decide whether thematic investment is right for you or not?
Sure. So I would say on two parts, I would say if you are a new age investor, just recently started into markets, and I recently meaning your equity investments are usually been in the last 2-3 years, I would say please observe thematic funds because your core part of your portfolio is yet to evolve and mature. So I would say first get your basics right for any investment portfolio. Foundation is most important, and foundation will happen with the core products, whether it is your index products, which is ETFs, index, or having a large, mid, small, and flexi caps and others, and your asset allocation right. So do not be worried that you are missing a theme, because building your base is more important than missing out something. Once that is made and you have a certain investment experience, please then you can consider thematic funds, but not at the cost of your main allocation. Your majority allocation should go there. That's the first way of looking at it. For others who are already discerning investors, I would say that please look at a theme where you think you would like to stay invested for a long period of time, because thematic funds need a little bit more of your time frame, because they tend to be slightly little bit more volatile than normal funds. Their experience will be slightly limited. So therefore allow that much time to yourself so that those investments mature for you.
All right, and one final question coming through: how can I minimize risks associated with thematic investing?
Right, so that's another good question, I would say. One of the ways to reduce the risk, I would say, is to invest regularly and see, because that would take care of any volatility if there were in such themes. I would say that so the risk remains same as it is for any of the equity investments anyone were to do. I would say that equities for the short term are not such great, but if you have a longer time frame, I think they are able to give you a good post-inflation, post-taxation investment experience. So I would say allow that time. If you allow your time, you would have these experiences because your power of compounding is working in your favor.
All right. Well, Mayuk, it was a pleasure speaking to you, and thanks a lot for explaining thematic investing to us, talking about the difference between thematic and sectoral investing. And I completely take your point that this is a time when perhaps investors should look at thematic investing, given that there are some huge themes which are playing out in India, whether it's digitization, it's Europe plus one, it is the domestic consumption theme, it's autos. There are a lot of umbrella themes that one can sort of benefit from. So any final thoughts before we wrap up the conversation, Mayuk?
No, I think, thank you, Sonia, for giving us the opportunity to explain it. As I said, investors should consider this. It's always a matter of degree of your portfolio, which actually affects the outcomes. As long as you are able to manage that, I think there are very discerning and great themes, not only in India, but also you are getting themes from outside India to now being available in India to you. So the investor is spoiled for choice, but as long as you are able to get the right set, I think you will have a great investment experience. So that would be my final thought. So thank you so much.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Mayuk, and thank you to all our viewers for tuning in and keep giving us feedback. We'd love to hear from you. That's it from our end, from Wizards of Finance. Thanks for watching.
Thank you.